By Dr. Iftik Hayul Hako 33342570013. Articles of Faith. Q.A. Outline Islamic teachings about belief in the oneness of God, Tawhid. 10. B. Why is associating partners with God, shirk, regarded as a great sin? 4. ANSA. Belief in the oneness of God is the most important article of faith and foundation of all Islamic teachings. Belief in absolute oneness of God is called Tawhid, and it is the foundation of Islam. The Quran for this reason declares it as an act of righteousness. It is righteousness to believe in Allah. 2:177, Al-Baqarah. Tawhid means that God alone is one supreme God in person as well as attributes. A person becomes Muslim just by believing and uttering the expression, "There is no God but God and Muhammad is the messenger of God." The first part of this expression occurs repeatedly in the Quran in a variety of shades. For example, the verse of the throne begins as, "There is no God but He." 2:255, Al-Baqarah. The words Allah, Ilah, and Ahad, the one and only, are exclusively reserved for God as they refer to absolute oneness and uniqueness of God. As for the nature and person of God, it is impossible for humans to imagine. This because it is beyond the domain of human comprehension. Surah 112 best summarizes this aspect of Tawhid by saying, "Say He is God, the one and only. God, the eternal, absolute. He begets not, nor is He begotten. And there is none like unto Him." According to this surah, God has always been there since ever and will remain there forever, and so, is free from the clutches of time and space. For the same reason God does not have any family tree or progeny. He is entirely self-subsisting and self-sustaining. All this makes Him absolutely unique and matchless, and the Quran endorses this by saying, "There is nothing whatever like unto Him, and He is the one who hears and sees all things." 42:11, Al-Shura. God's freedom from the grip of time and space is beautifully mentioned in the Quran as, "He is the first and the last, the evident and the hidden." 57:3, Al-Hayd. Tawhid also states that God is entirely immune to all forms of human weaknesses and needs such as hunger or thirst or needing any rest or relaxation. Verse of the throne mentions it as, "No slumber can seize Him nor sleep." God's knowledge is unlimited and infinite. He knows everything hidden or manifest, and He has the knowledge of all the characteristics, merits and demerits, of each and everything in the whole universe. The Quran describes this fact as, "With Him are the keys of the unseen, the treasures that no one knows but He. He knows whatever there is on the earth and in the sea. Not a single leaf falls but with His knowledge." 6:59, Al-An'am. This means that the unlimited knowledge of God encompasses every nook and corner of His domain. Together with His knowledge, His authority, too, is unlimited and boundless. According to the verse of the throne, the entire universe reflects God's throne and power. Every living and non-living entity is under His control. Surah Al-Fatiha for this reason opens as, "Praise be to God, Lord of the worlds." God's ultimate power to create this universe is endorsed in the following verse, "To Him is due the primal origin of the heavens and the earth." 6:101, Al-An'am. The Quran also refers to the perfection of God's ability to create and maintain His creations in a beautiful way, as is mentioned in this verse, "He has created the heavens and the." By Dr. Iftik Hayul Hako 33342570013. Earth in just proportions, and has given you shapes and made your shapes beautiful, and to Him is the final goal. 64:3, Al-Tagabun. Tawhid also demands Muslims to seek shelter of God's powers against all evil forces. Last two surahs of the Quran particularly teach this lesson to Muslims. Surah 114, Al-Nas, mentions this as, "Say I seek refuge with the Lord of mankind. King of mankind. God of mankind." These verses of Tawhid instruct Muslims to constantly seek His help and guidance. This means that they should always remember that God alone created all and is capable of sustaining the entire universe. Finally, the same God will summon all humans in his court for accountability. He will be the master of the day of judgment, and on that day nobody will dare to intercede, as the verse of the throne says, who is there who can intercede in his presence except as he permits. 2:255, Al-Baqarah. Thus, a true belief in Tawhid infuses in Muslims a spirit of submission, obedience and gratitude so that they can remember him by avoiding all those acts that are likely to displease him. B. The Quran and Sunnah condemn it as the most heinous and greatest of all sins. The Quran declares, God does not forgive that partners be ascribed to him, but he forgives anything else to whom he pleases. For 48, Al-Nisa. By committing shirk, a person shakes the foundational pillar of Islam, Tawhid. This reflects that person's mental incapacity who remains ignorant of the consequences of destabilizing the building in which he lives. Shirk also means challenging the unshared power and authority of God. Shirk is also an expression of ingratitude to God, that is an attribute of Satan. So, if a believer follows the footsteps of Satan, her fate will be like that of Satan. This means shirk, in its accumulative effect, weakens the faith in God's supremacy, sovereignty, authority and power to create, sustain and nourish all the creatures. This weakness gradually results in an irreversible loss of true faith in Tawhid. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Types of Tawhid. Q.A. Describe the belief in Tawhid with reference to its various types. 10. B. Why are some people inclined towards committing shirk? 4. A. Belief in absolute oneness of God in his person and attributes is the foundation of Islam. It is the first article of faith and the first component of testimony to faith, Shahada. Tawhid can be classified into 4 major categories. 1. Belief in God's oneness and existence of God. This belief has always been a debatable issue because he is invisible, and Islam demands humankind to believe in the unseen. In it, the Quran, there is guidance for those who are righteous. Those who believe in the unseen. 2:2, Al-Baqarah. This means a belief in the invisible God is linked with piety and guidance to the right path. This, in turn, leads to the dawn of truth of Tawhid with a greater shine on the hearts of the believers. The Quran gives this reassurance in the same surah, we have made our signs clear to those who are firm in their faith. 2:118, Al-Baqarah. In fact, one can surely identify one God through the medium of his signs. Various cyclic phenomena around us inspire human mind to think about the Supreme Lord who created such a vast, immense and immaculate universe. The Quran draws our attention to this in a challenging tone. You will see no incongruity in the Merciful One's creation. Turn your vision again, can you? See any flaw? Then look again, and again your vision will return frustrated and weary. 67:3-4. Al-Mulk, we can ascertain God's existence by the granting of our supplications, the miraculous powers he granted to his messengers, the miraculous events around us and many scientific realities mentioned in the Quran. For example, scientists discovered the expansion of galaxies in 20th century that the Quran had already stated clearly, and the heaven we constructed with strength, and indeed we are its expander. 52:47, Al-Dariyat. 2. Belief in God's supremacy and lordship. This dimension of Tawhid means God's ultimate control on creation, sustenance and the ultimate end of his created world. He created everything by his single command and without the assistance of anyone. This is testified by this verse, to him is due the primal origin of the heavens and the earth. 6:101, Al-An'am, the Quran, in several places, frequents universal authority, for to God go all matters for decision. 8:44, Al-Anfal, therefore, Muslims should turn to God to seek his refuge against all forms of evil forces, visible or invisible. The last 2 surahs of the Quran teach Muslims he is in control of the entire universe and the sole provider for all. Surah 1 declares, Praise be to God, Lord of the worlds. The Quran further emphasizes on his lordship as, who provides you from the heavens and the earth, and who rules and regulates all affairs. 10:31. Yunus, moreover, God is the supreme lawgiver and legislator, and he expects from humans to follow the laws designed by him. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. 3. Belief in God's worship. Being the sole creator, sustainer, and Lord of everything, God alone deserves worship. The Quran starts teaching Muslims this lesson in its opening surah, Al-Fatiha: "You alone we worship and your aid we seek." In order to teach and remind humans this message, God sent 124,000 prophets and messengers, as under satanic influence, humans were repeatedly distracted from the right path. The Quran says, "And we never sent any messenger before you, O Muhammad, without having revealed to him that there is no God but I, Allah." 21:25, Al-Anbiya. Therefore, humans need to acknowledge God alone as worthy of worship, since none of his creations can be elevated to this exclusive and unique status. For this reason, God has categorically declared shirk as the only unpardonable sin. Indeed, God does not forgive associating others with him in worship. For 48, Al-Nisa, by worshipping God, the foundational pillar of Islam, Tawhid, is strengthened. This, in turn, imparts strength to all other acts of worship. 4. Belief in God's unique attributes and his most beautiful names. There are 99 names of God that are known to humans. These refer to his exceptional and inimitable attributes as stated in the Quran, and the most beautiful names belong to God, so call on him by them. 7:180, Al-Araf, Ayat Al-Kursi, 2:255, mentions God as Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum, the ever-living, self-subsisting. Other Quranic verses describe him as Al-Qawi, Almighty, Al-Alim, all-knowing, Al-Same, all-hearing, Al-Basir, all-seeing, and Al-Alim Al-Ghaib Ash-Shahada, knower of the unseen and the seen, and Al-Qudus, the most holy. Muslims start all routine chores of life by reciting Tasmiyah that mentions God as Al-Rahman, the compassionate, and Al-Rahim, the most merciful, in order to keep reminding themselves of God's mercy and forgiveness. Humans are born with a weakness of being victims of Satan, and therefore, they frequently recite istighfar, seeking forgiveness from God. He alone is Al-Ghafur and Al-Ghaffur, the ultimate forgiver. So, none of the Muslims should be named like these. They, therefore, name their children as Abd-ul-Rahman, slave of the compassionate, and so on. One common form of shirk is shirk fil sifat, or shirk in God's attributes. In this type, humans start believing God's creatures to have his attributes, and that, too, drives them to pitfall of shirk. B. God condemned Satan forever when he disobeyed him, and he became the perpetual enemy of the whole humankind. His mission is to try to misguide humans and make them deviate from the right path that begins from Tawhid. Humans, therefore, remain his target, and the Quran repeatedly warns Muslims in these words, "Verily Satan is an enemy for you. So take him as an enemy." 35:6, Fatir, people having weak faith become victims of Satan, and start worshipping idols and deities. Many communities start adoring those objects of nature that seem magnanimous and powerful to them. For example, some of them worship elephant, snake, fire, and heavenly bodies like the sun, moon, and stars. Since one supreme God is invisible to all, people tend to find his reflection in his created world around them. Thus Satan keeps accomplishing his nefarious mission. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Q.A. Belief in the oneness of God, Tawhid, is a fundamental aspect of faith. State how Tawhid benefits Muslims in their everyday life. 10. B. Give reasons to support the statement that without Tawhid there is no faith. 4. ANSA. Tawhid is the foundation of all Islamic teachings. Just as a building cannot be erected without a foundation, a person is not a Muslim without a belief in Tawhid. The greatest benefit of Tawhid is that it keeps a Muslim away from shirk, the only unpardonable sin. Besides this, Tawhid has several other benefits for Muslims. Belief in Tawhid trains a believer to refer all matters to one God who is Lord of the worlds. Such a believer will not depend on worldly powers for his needs and wants. He will seek help from his Lord with a firm faith in this Quranic injunction, for to God go all matters for decision. 3:109, Ali Imran, a genuine believer in Tawhid, therefore, develops self-respect and confidence as he depends on the most powerful one God. Tawhid inculcates a genuine fear of God, called taqwa. This, in turn, trains a Muslim to believe in God's omniscience. The Quran describes this divine attribute as, He is with you wherever you are. 57:4, Al-Hayd, a strong faith in this will keep him from disobedience of God and sinful deeds. A true Muslim will, therefore, become more virtuous and righteous servant of God. Tawhid makes a Muslim realize his worthlessness before his Creator Lord, and this will make him humble before God who loves humility and submission. Tawhid is best demonstrated when a Muslim offers salat, regular prayer that teaches him humbleness. The Quran guarantees success for the humble servants of God. Believers will surely win through those who humble themselves in their prayer. Surah 23, Al-Mu'minun. Tawhid also creates a sense of gratitude in the hearts of Muslims as they attribute all their achievements and success to God Almighty. A hadith establishes a link between Tawhid and gratitude to God as, the best remembrance is, there is no God but God, and the best invocation is, praise be to God. This belief broadens the outlook and vision of Muslims who realize that all humans are creation of God. He created human race from a single pair of Adam and Eve, as is endorsed by this the Quranic verse, O humankind, be dutiful to your Lord, who created you from a single person, Adam, and from him he created his, Adam's, wife. 49:1, Al-Hujurat, this sense of equality in turn makes them loving and caring to fellow humans. In other words, Muslims with such feelings negate all forms of religious, socio-economic, racial and geographical prejudices. Tawhid makes a Muslim bold, courageous and fearless as he believes that God alone gives and takes life as and when he wishes. Therefore, this belief becomes an effective weapon against all visible or invisible satanic forces. The last two surahs, Al-Falaq and Al-Nas, are called Al-Mu'awwazatun, or the two protectors. This is so because they teach Muslims to seek refuge with God only from all forms of devil and his tactics, including black magic and evil eye. Tawhid is a guaranteed recipe for attaining peace of mind and contentment. Muslims express thanks to God for whatever He has granted them and other humans. As a result, they do not develop negative feelings of jealousy and envy on the success and achievements of those around them. They keep reminding themselves this instruction of the Prophet, beware of jealousy because jealousy consumes the virtues just as fire consumes the firewood. Instead, they keep struggling more and leave the fruit of their efforts to God. They are taught to remember God in all circumstances in order to endure genuine peace of mind. The Quran instructs them in this regard, surely in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest. 13:28, Al-Ra'd. ANS, B. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Tawhid is the first article of faith as well as first part of Shahadah. All other beliefs, acts of worship and teachings of social conduct are dependent on Tawhid. A believer establishes regular prayer and observes other pillars of Islam only when he has a staunch belief in Tawhid. Recitation of Al-Fatiha is an essential part of regular prayer as its core teaching is Tawhid. He fasts in Ramadan on the command of one God, and pays the charity tax zakat for the same reason. Similarly, he undergoes hardships of Hajj, major pilgrimage, in order to fulfill an obligatory duty towards God. A Quranic verse sums up the relationship between Tawhid and other beliefs and acts as, say, indeed my prayer and my rites of sacrifice, and my living and my dying are all for God. 6:162, Al-Naam.